Welcome to the Matt Phillips Podcast. I am Matt Phillips, your sales leadership coach, mental toughness expert, and founder of Matt Phillips Coaching. We help sales managers and leaders make more money, save time, and become kick-ass leaders of their sales teams. And that's what we're here to talk about on this podcast. We are here to give you the tools and tactics to build a well-oiled sales machine and teach you the mental toughness skills so you can show up confident, focused, emotionally in control, and ready to energize your team. It's time to talk sales leadership and mental toughness. Let's get into today's episode. We are back for another podcast episode. It's Matt with you as always. And today I'm actually going to answer a question that I received via email from one of my clients. And it was such a key question that I hear more often than not when I'm dealing with sales leaders. So I thought I'd take some time today to talk about how I coach people through sales slumps, or how I coach the sales coaches, right? You bosses, to actually coach your people through sales slumps. And before I get into that today, I had this idea because, this client had a question. I wonder, what questions do you have? Right? Because leadership can be challenging, right? There's ups and downs and good and bad, and questions are always popping up. And so I wanted to throw this out to you. If you have a question about leadership and you want it answered on this podcast, shoot us an email. Literally send an email to theteam at mattphillipscoaching.com. Ask your question. What we'll do is compile them and make a little podcast episode just answering the questions that you have. All right, so shoot us that email, right? And it's theteam, T-H-E, team at mattphillipscoaching.com. Now, today we're here to talk about how do you coach someone through a sales slump. And there's a certain methodology that I always talk about. If you've listened to other podcast episodes, you've heard about our FFAR methodology, FFAR. And quickly, it's feelings, facts, action, results, right? So every situation, this is how I'm coaching people. This is how I'm thinking through it. I'm like, what are they feeling right now? What do we know to be true about the situation? What are the facts that we know, right? And within that, what's controllable, what's not? And then how do we figure out what action we can take to drive the results that we want? And so maybe we'll link up the show notes to a little more in depth about that FFAR methodology. But slumps are interesting. And I'm a baseball guy, right? So I'd have these periods of my career and of my collegiate and high school playing days where I'm just crushing the ball, right? I mean, I can do no wrong. I can never take a bad swing. It's like the ball, as they say, looks like the size of a beach ball, right? It looks that big, that enticing, that tasty, right? When it comes in, that you just smack it and it's great. And it just seems to find the open space and give you that hit. And then what seemed like in the snap of a finger, you'd go down this other path, which is the slump, right? Where the ball seemed like the size of a pea, right? Like flying in there from the pitcher. And it's like, oh my gosh, how am I going to hit that? It seems so small. And we go through these periods of ups and downs. And the same thing happens in a sales environment, right? We're going to have times where we're just absolutely crushing it, killing it. I mean, it's like the deals. We can do no wrong with the deal, right? We introduce ourselves, say, hi, I'm Matt. And then they're like, yes, we'll buy. I haven't told you what we do yet. And we all have experienced those times in our lives. But it's how do we, when things aren't going the way we want them, right? When maybe that pipeline is starting to dry up a little bit, like how do we coach people through that? Because that can be unbelievably frustrating, overwhelming. I used to get so angry during those periods in baseball and even in sales, and just starting to get into my head, right? That's when that self-talk really starts. And we did another podcast episode about kind of getting the head trash out that we'll link in the show notes too. And that negative self-talk can be detrimental, right? I remember in baseball, goodness sake, I started having a slump. And again, I'd go from, not being able to get a couple hits for, a game or two in a row or maybe longer, right? If I'm fully truthful. And all of a sudden I'd be, based on how I'm thinking, like a horrible baseball player. And again, when we look at, even that FFAR methodology, the feelings, facts, action, results, right? I was feeling that way. The truth is that's really not the case, right? And so there's two things that I want to point out to you today to help coach your people through experienced sales slumps. And the first I always talk about is you have to, and this is where I think we miss a lot, right? Because I think we skip ahead to, okay, let's double the action, right? Let's send more emails. Let's make more phone calls. I mean, let's double, triple, 10x the output and the activity, right? And I'm like, okay, that may be a good step, but hold your horses for a little bit, right? Let's back up. I believe the first step in coaching people through that slump is we have to remind them of when things were good, right? We have to connect with that feeling of when things were absolutely going well, because sometimes as salespeople, we can be fairly emotional, right? And that's not a good or bad thing. It's just that's the way it is. And sometimes we forget. And so we have to, as coaches of our sales team, right? That's what a sales leader is. You're a coach. We have to first and foremost take a step back and be like, hey, okay, I know we're going through this rough patch here, but let's remember back a little bit, right? And one question you can ask them is, remind me of a time where you were just crushing it and things were going extremely well, right? And tell me what that was like and how that felt. And immediately they're going to go back to, shoot, it may be like a week ago, maybe last month, and maybe last quarter. I don't know when it is, but they're going to remember and reconnect when they were at that point in their sales cycle and going through their sales process where that felt good. And that's that emotional piece we have to connect to. I think we go too quick, like past the emotion and connectedness to boom, like let's take more action. Get out the phone book if those exist today and just start calling companies, right? And let's see what happens. But we have to connect them with that. That's really step one of like, let's remember back to what it was like. And then you can dive a little bit deeper into that and be like, okay, so you were crushing at that time. You were obviously doing something to lead you to that success. Right? There was some activity you were doing or activities that led you to that success. And you have to connect that emotion with what they were actually doing at that time. Because again, like when things are going bad, we as salespeople and your team, it's like we will do anything and everything to score a deal. I mean, well, give me a sandwich board and I will put it on my front and back and be like, can I sell you something today? Like, I will walk around the downtown area near me just to do anything I can to make a sale. Well, again, we've done things in the past to position ourselves to be successful. And we have to remind our salespeople, like, what were those things? What were you doing? And once you kind of work them through that, then we can make that next and be, okay, now we know that. We know what it felt like. We know what you were doing to be successful at that time. Now, what action can we take? Right? Because as one of my mentors says, action eliminates fear. And you've heard me say it before, action eliminates fear, action eliminates overwhelm, action eliminates frustration. You know, back when I was in a slump in baseball, as quick as I could, and this is something I learned as I went through the high school, collegiate, and professional ranks, is the quicker I was able to take a intentional action, not just action, but intentional action, the better off I was, the quicker I got out of my head, the quicker I started to take control of the situation and move those things forward. And I believe the same thing is true in sales. It's what intentional action can I start taking now and how consistent can I be with that intentional action? And it's getting them refocused on those types of things. As their coach, that's what we're there to do. And so it's not the, it's kind of this art and science combined. And you have to, first of all, as a coach, step back and be like, what questions do I need to ask right now to get them refocused on the intentionality which led them to have success in the past? I think sometimes we just lose our way a little bit, or sometimes stars aren't aligned. I don't know. Maybe there's bad vibes. Things just seem out of whack at different times in our sales lives. That's how it was in baseball, at least. That's how it was in sales. That's how it is now. Listen, I'm a leadership coach, mental toughness expert. I run a business. End of the day, I'm in sales too, right? Just like you. And so there's ups and downs and good and bad and things where I can do no wrong. And other times where I'm like, man, where'd the clients go, right? Where'd my prospects go? But as soon as I remember back to when I was killing it and remembering the intentionality I had in what I was doing at that time to generate that success, I can now leverage that and figure out what I can do going forward. Now, I may need to increase and double, triple that activity, but it's intentional. It's not just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing if it's going to stick. It's intentional. That's where you have to help coach your people, right? So it's back to that FFAR methodology: feelings, facts, action, results. right? I really just said it differently when you're coaching people, right? And all I'm saying is you have to reconnect them with that feeling of what it was like when they were crushing it. And then you have to get to the facts of what were you doing that led you to that success, right? How intentional were you? Like, where did you see the biggest correlations between that activity and revenue, or that activity and meetings? Like, looking for those correlations. And then within those facts, those things that are controllable, how do we take action upon that to drive the results that we want? That's how you coach people through a sales slump. The other piece that I will encourage you to do to help keep that coaching alive, because it's not necessarily that you come out of a slump quickly. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And as a sales leader, as that manager, as that coach, you have to stay with them on this journey, right? You have to be kind of side by side with them going through this battle. And the way that shows up is accountability, right? It's checking in with them. It's making sure they're taking that intentional action. You're making the tweaks along the way that you need to, that you're there for them to work through this. Because here's the reality. We can talk about coaching and that FFAR methodology all day long. But sometimes as salespeople, just as human beings, frankly, we slip back into those feelings, like those negative feelings pretty quick, and those negative thoughts very quickly. And so as a coach, we need to recognize that and be, okay, I know they took intentional action today. I need to help them make sure they continue to take that going forward. You can call it accountability or checking in or whatever you want to, but it's that salesperson has to know that you are in it with them. You're on that journey with them. You're going to battle with them, right? You've got your axe, they've got their sword. I don't know, maybe I'm going back to the Middle Ages or something with this analogy, but it's like now we go to battle together, right? We're going to work through this. But again, the quicker you get them to action, intentional action, the quicker you're going to get them to those positive results. I'm telling you, back when those slumps in baseball, right? The first thing I would do is go hit off a tee, or have my dad throw me soft toss, or have a teammate throw me soft toss or batting practice, and was working on the things where I was having trouble. But just that one bit of action, intentionality, took me out of my own head, focused on the controllables, and 99 times out of 100, 100 times out of 100, I eventually came out of that slump and I started to hit again. I started to believe in myself. And the same thing is true of the salespeople that you work with. So that's my little spiel today. Short and sweet podcast today. How to coach people through a sales slump. Remember, if you have a question about leadership, about sales that you want answered on the podcast, shoot us an email at theteam@mattphillipscoaching.com. We will compile and pull them together. And I hope you have a fabulous day coaching your people to optimize their performance. Thank you for joining us today on the Matt Phillips Podcast. If you are like us, we know that you are here to do great things, to become the sales leader that makes things happen and drives big-time sales results. We know you have that big vision, and we are here to help get you where you want to go. We're here to help you develop that unstoppable, rock-solid leadership skill set and help you train to master the one true differentiator, mental toughness. We would love to be part of your journey. So if you are ready, head over to mattphillipscoaching.com and check out the ways that we can help. As always, please share this episode and make sure you subscribe by clicking the button below. Thank you again. And now, go crush the day.